Is there a doctor in the house?
Doctor, you have a visitor in the main lobby.
Hello, and welcome to today's Talk to the Doc podcast, the show that aims to help executives educate themselves more in technology and the business decisions that surround it. I'm your host, Steve the Dr. Meek, and the doctor is in. I'll be helping you through this visit with a little bit of fun hijinks with a good friend of mine. We've had some hijinks together before. Our topic today, though, is around tariffs and the impact it's going to have on business. So today I've brought you a great speaker, Jeff Jones. He's CFO of Twisted3. He's also a mental momentum coach and summit consulting coach. But together we've got a great show for you. How you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing great.
Well, hey, I just mentioned a little bit about you. Obviously, I couldn't say everything about you because, you know, you're old and all. But is there anything else that you want to throw in there to help the audience know a little bit about you?
You know, I think old really covers it all. But yeah, I have been around the block a time or two. As you mentioned, I'm Chief Financial Officer at Twisted3. We're a footwear company based in Decatur, Texas. We, make product, work product, casual product, and then Western product, which was our heritage and where we got started. So hence the cowboy hat. And as long as you've known me, I've been in the Western industry. So
the hat didn't come with the job. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
It has come with me for a long time now.
BYOH.
That's the way I roll. But yeah, so I've been here almost 10 years now. As I said, I've been in the Western industry since 94, but Twisted3 has been a great company. We've grown a lot since I've been here. Check us out at twisted3.com. We're big on the planet and sustainability stuff. So I've got to put that plug in. We also do a lot of philanthropy work. And then, as you mentioned, I got started in coaching. I'm looking at my after corporate, career. So been working on getting my coaching certification through ICF, which is International Coaching Federation, and love coaching. I mean, it is one of the funnest things I do. And
you always had that go-giver mentality.
Yeah, it's just working with people and helping them take their next steps and move forward and become everything they're wanting to become is just one of the most soul-filling things I've ever done in my life. So, implementing some of that here, working away. But yeah, married. We've got 6 kids between us, 5 grandkids. So that keeps us going. Had my 2-year-old granddaughter last weekend, and I still haven't recovered from that. She's go full-time. So, just a lot of fun stuff going on.
Nice. Well, awesome. I know you've earned it over the years, all the hard work and effort and things to, be a good corporate citizen for not just you as an individual, but for all the organizations you've worked for. So, I always applaud people being great corporate citizens.
It's good to do good.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. Let's jump right into it. Let's get some vitals. So, any statistic or something that is kind of the pulse, kind of current state of the market or industry related to, kind of the post-Trump tariffs?
Yeah, well, I think the thing I think we see and hear the most is the Fed funds rate, and of course, our president's apparently not a big fan of Jerome Powell right now, but there's just so much tied up with how changing the interest rate impacts the country, the economy in different ways, and they just on Wednesday elected to stand firm where they were. The president's enraged from a business perspective, and what I'm seeing in the market, I don't disagree with their stance, but at the same time, I just bought a new truck, so I'd love for interest rates to go down so I could refinance soon. So.
There you go. I think I saw something like $23 billion in receipts hit in May. So I guess having a new record in customs receipts is a good thing,
Yeah.
at least in the short term, at least for that month.
Yeah, it depends on who's paying.
Right. Oh, aren't we? Oh, never mind. We'll move forward. Let's talk about the heart rate. What other performance metrics tell the story for you right now?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it, receipts, what products, obviously, when the tariffs went sky high back in early April, people quit ordering anything. Now stuff's coming in. So how is that? And inflation, obviously, is the other big thing. So, people went out and bought a lot of stuff when they heard the tariffs were going to hit, especially big ticket items, household, electronics, household appliances and whatnot. And now we've got all this product coming in, and are people going to turn off the spigot? When you and I met, I was on the retail side. And so I was always really curious about the psychology of the consumer and how that impacted. So again, with product coming in, with interest rates being what they are, with some other geopolitical things going on, what's going to happen with inflation? If oil prices are about to go up sky high because of the Israel-Iraq issue, what's that going to do to people? And so, a lot of prognosticators out there, but it's hard until it happens. And really, we can talk about this more later, but, the pandemic, I think, did a lot to change people's mentality about
Absolutely
spending and saving. And, there's been a lot more spending, I feel like, since the pandemic, just because people were cooped up for so long. And I think that's had a little bit of an echo effect, but we'll see. So, yeah, the inflation is going to be the next big thing we've got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, definitely during the pandemic, I think that was the first recent time and recent memory. Sometimes in the business world, we have short-term memory, but, a lot of executives and organizations got to experience a product constraint. And, when you need something and you can't get it, that makes business operations very difficult with some of the tariffs and some of the current concerns there and manufacturing changes. The end of Windows 10, we're still expecting to see some of that around product hardware and those kinds of things. But, it's just so unpredictable. Things seem to change. I don't want to say day to day, but at least in my head, my, almost 60-year-old head, it seems like things are changing day to day. And I'm sure for the average business consumer, it's hard to wrap your head around those things because they're not watching they're just trying to make a decision on things and then suddenly realizing yay, nay, or other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we're making decisions on things based on our best guess, but we have seen that, President Trump can change his mind really quickly. And so, or what we're making decisions on today going to be the standard in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or weeks or months. So, it's a lot of uncertainty right now, to say the least.
I saw a great little political cartoon during the tariffs, and it shows Trump looks like he's on the phone with somebody. The other end, it looks like a computer guy, and he's asking the guy on the phone a question. He's like, "So what do you think?" And then the computer guy says, "Have you thought about trying to turn it off and turn it back on again?" It never mentions the tariffs, but that's the implication.
It's the truth.
Let's see. Weight. Weight makes a difference in most things. So what's a strategy metric that you think leaders should be thinking about right now?
And that's a great question because there's just so many things at play right now. But the one thing I'm telling people is watch your cash. It's with so many changes going on and so much happening, companies need to be nimble. Boy, if your debt's too high and your cash is too low, it is hard to be nimble. So in the CFO groups I'm in and just some other opportunities I've had to talk to business leaders, it's manage your cash, which obviously comes with managing your debt. But I like to talk about the positives and not the negatives. So.
Well, ever since I used to play basketball with dinosaurs, we always said cash is king. But for you, if you're trying to manage, your cash resources, what is the average business owner doing to do that? What are you advising them to do to help them through those times?
Yeah, I mean, the easy target is any expenses that are non-sales driven expenses. So, cut back anywhere that you're not spending money to make more money is the easy one. But, the other part is, like we've just gone through a whole process of picking apart our whole inventory system from beginning to end and looking for every penny we can squeeze out. And are there things that we've been doing because they were easy to do and because they didn't cause a big problem, but now, 4 cents matters. And, when you're selling 2 million pair of shoes, 4 cents per pair matters. And so where can we look at all those little places that we haven't really put time into to say, can we get a little more efficient here? Can we save a few cents, dollars, whatever it might be here? So that's really a bigger thing because it impacts margin. It impacts, the retail price at the end of the day. So those are the two areas, the easy one and one that's a little more intensive and not as easy. But I mean, I'm doing everything from renegotiating, parcel rates right now to freight forwarding rates to insurance rates. I mean, I'm talking to everybody that I do business with and, hey, on my renewal, or if I can do it now, what's the best pricing I can get right now?
Yeah, I'm taking away from that I think I hear you saying, obviously you're trying to scrutinize your business and trying to gain, efficiencies or reduce costs or whatever, everywhere you can. But my big takeaway from that is you don't need to hit a home run. You don't need to dramatically change things. But, if you cut 1% of expenses, if you get 1% more efficient by looking at, whatever is going on in operations, if you, whatever other activities you've got going on, you don't have to hit a home run. But if you scrutinize everything and improve everything 1%, the resultant factor will probably be a lot larger than the aggregated 1%. It'll have kind of a multiplier effect and have a bigger impact on the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's, our CEO and I have had just kind of a running joke forever, that every penny counts. And of course, now we're going to have to change that to every nickel counts because we're getting rid of the pennies. But prior to that, every penny counts, because when you multiply that over how many things that penny, might affect, those numbers start to add up. And so nothing's too little to consider right now to improve both just your balance sheet position, but your bottom line as well.
I remember that from college, managerial accounting, going through line by line of the chart of accounts, look at trends, look at how much you save, look at repeating expenses that maybe you can cancel. I think part of the challenge for the modern business owners, we have so many things that we're paying as a monthly fee now. Those things can really add up and can be forgotten, and you can license a piece of software and that employee leave, and you just forgot that who had that licensing. So,
yeah.
Getting specific about those expenses and tracking them down. It seems like a small impact on a multi-million-dollar budget, like you're talking about, but sounds like you're making the time, you're being disciplined about it, and making sure that you're looking through all those things.
Yeah. And, and the other piece of it is you go through that and that requires everybody to kind of participate in that. And so now you've got everybody with this mindset again of, hey, do I need to spend that dollar? Do I need, is this something we can change? And so it's, like I said, it's been an intensive project, but it's been a good project. So.
Now, a lot of these tariffs are obviously targeting overseas manufacturing. Is that a big part of your operations, or is your organization mainly U.S. based?
No, it's footwear is all, and when I say all, 99% of footwear is made outside of the U.S. It was something back in the 70s that there was just kind of a push actually to move footwear out of the U.S. for a lot of reasons. Price being one of them, but also just, some of the components that go into footwear, the glues and some of those things,
gotcha.
OSHA and EPA and different places were not big fans of. And so, yeah, I mean, prior to the tariffs, 90% of our product was coming out of China and about 10% out of Mexico. So we're reconfiguring all that right now. Mexico is going to get more. We're going to move some production to India. We'll still do some in China just because they do some things better than anybody else, but prices are going to go up. But Yeah, it's, people are, other companies are moving to Vietnam or Cambodia. I don't know. At the end of the day, they're not consumer economies, so I don't know that they're not going to get hit with big tariffs. India is a little bit more of a consumer economy, and so we feel good about moving there. We think tariffs will be as low as they can be, but it's going to impact our business. We've already had to institute a price increase, as most footwear manufacturers have.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's a mess. I mean, we had one container that accidentally shipped after the April executive order, and it's a container that the goods were about $120,000, and the tariff was $180,000.
Wow.
And so, we're disputing that right now, but because we weren't supposed to have anything shipped after that date of the executive order. But nonetheless, tariffs are, they are making an impact. Everybody's looking at what they can do. Trump a few weeks ago came out and said, look, we're not going to make sneakers and socks and T-shirts here. Those can be better done other places. I was thinking after that, he would go, hey, maybe I should just go ahead and eliminate that tariff on shoes, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. But, there may be some things that people will still bring back to the U.S., but footwear and apparel just doesn't, for the most part, make sense because of the cost involved in both the infrastructure needs and the labor.
So I'm taking away from that you're not in the camp of, and maybe it's just for footwear, but what are your thoughts on, just bringing all manufacturing back to the U.S.? What's the practicality of that?
It's not. Well, and this is a just a purely simple economics lesson that I had to share with one of my employees the other day, because we were talking about the International Court of whatever, the trade that ruled the tariffs unlawful, and I brought that up, and he said, well, I guess we're just going to let those countries take advantage of us again, aren't we? And I said, look, here's the problem. Americans want to make more money and they want to pay less. That doesn't work. You can't bring manufacturing back to the U.S. and pay people more money and charge less for the product. If it's going to be one or the other. And so, and I don't see anybody going, oh, let me make less just so we can manufacture here. And so, footwear product would be 2 times as expensive as it is right now, if not more, because you're going to be dealing with unions. You're going to be dealing with a lot of regulatory requirements. There's no way footwear companies can move it back to the U.S. and stay in business. So it's,
I guess, saying just bring it all back is, I guess that's like thinking you can, grill a steak with a scented candle. It's a cute idea, but the results will stink.
Yeah. And I would love for all of our product to be made in America. That would be great. And if we thought it could happen, we would do it as fast as anybody, but it just isn't practical in today's environment. And so, I'm sure there are, obviously they're making cars here, and there's things where robotics and some of those things can play a bigger role that might make it work. Of course, that's people not getting paid, but there are some things that can potentially come back. But the reason everybody's doing it somewhere else isn't because they're not patriotic. It's because Americans want to spend less money. And it's
for your
issue.
For your production changes, kind of making decisions on the, who, what, when, where, are your decisions formed mainly around like cost, capability, production, cold feet? What goes into your decision making for trying to figure out where you're going to get the services or components from?
Yeah, well, it's definitely production capabilities, it's quality, and it's cost. So, those are the 3 big factors.
Gotcha.
Then there's other things that go into it. But, it's like these factories we're going to move into in India. The quality's there. They make some really nice footwear products already. So, and while we're a high quality product, we're, think Cole Haan or some of those that, really high dollar leather products, they're making those, so they can do that, but it's going to cost a little more than it was costing us before. So again, it's going to cost the consumer a little bit more, but we can still get it done cheaper than what the tariffs appear they're going to be in China, and so it's worth the effort. But initially, our margins are going to suffer while we're getting it ramped up and going, because now we're having to pull product we've already had shipped to China. We're going to have to shift it to India, so we've got the transportation cost for that, and then just getting everything scaled up, dyes and molds and all the things that they use in making the product in India. So for the first 9 months to a year, our margins are going to take a hit.
I bet.
And so we're going to eat a lot of that as opposed to passing all that on. But it's, the cost of doing business.
Sure. Well, rope us into your insight on, I guess, kind of the interrelatedness of economics. Who pays the tariffs?
Steve Meek. So,
I'm not a consumer. I don't buy anything. I make my own duct tape at home. That's how cheap I am.
Well, okay, then maybe your wife, if she's out buying something.
Yeah, she goes and buys everything.
At the end of the day, it's the consumer that's going to pay it, because we pay it when the product lands on U.S. All of our stuff comes into Long Beach on the West Coast, so that's when we pay the tariff. So that goes into our landed cost for our footwear. So we've got what we paid the factory, then we've got the cost of the container shipping it over here, the duties and tariffs, and then just other, trucking costs and that kind of stuff to get it to our warehouse. And so at the end of the day, either we eat it and we're going to lose money, or we're going to raise our prices, which we've already done. And that's going to trickle down to the end consumer.
So I'm kind of thinking, I'm hearing you say that, the government is talking about it in the form of nationalism and, hurting the other countries, notably China. But in the end, it's really, that huge dollar number is affecting all Americans. It's just, one pair of footwear at a time, or one transaction at a time, as opposed to, millions and billions of dollars.
Yeah. Well, and let's just keep this between you and me, right? We won't tell everybody.
I won't tell anyone. Nobody watches my podcast anyway, so it's pretty much.
Well, once they find out I'm here, they'll come in by the ones and twos. There's also a bill in Congress to reduce taxes. Well, you can't reduce taxes without creating another revenue stream. So basically, what we're being told is we're going to reduce your tax burden, but we're going to make it up over here and not tell you that we're increasing your tax burden when you buy products. So it's basically an added, sales tax, usage tax, whatever you want to call it. That's making up the money that they're giving away in the tax cuts, income tax. So it's, it's no different than your business. You can't all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to discount prices over here by 50% without raising prices somewhere else, or bringing in a higher priced item to sell to make up for that difference. And so it's kind of I won't call it a bait and switch, but it's a little bit of a magic trick, I guess. Get your attention over here so you don't notice this over here.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that in there. And, I struggle, growing up in small town, West Texas, your ultimate patriots, you're for certain things, regardless of whatever happens in the world or who's president and stuff. But, over the years of studying history and other things, it's been hard to come to a different realization of, maybe I need to look at this deeper, or maybe I need to understand how all these things are related, or, let me compare both sides of the coin in these particular situations. And I think if anything, it helps me not sleep very well at night. But, I think that's important on all of us to make sure that we, especially as business owners, see all sides of the equation. But, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's a challenge, because really at the end of the day, government should do the same thing that you and I do when times get tough. And it's, hey, we've got to cut back. We've got to tighten our belt. But yeah, gosh, there's so much that goes into that I couldn't even tell you where to start because, $1 trillion economy or whatever it is. But the flip side is we do have an issue too with the national debt. And, we've got this little thing coming due in June where we've, either going to have to raise the debt ceiling again, which wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? Hey, I want to borrow more money, so I'm just going to call my bank and tell them to raise my debt ceiling. I want a bigger house, so just give me more money.
Give me more credit.
And then, of course, interest rates aren't doing what I think the president hoped they were going to do, even in the bond market, which isn't related to the Fed necessarily. And so there's a lot of problems right now that somebody someday is going to have to pay the piper. So the debt will come due, and I worry about that for my grandchildren. But yeah, I mean, there's just there's a lot of things, and like you said, the older I get, the more aware I am of, does the left hand know what the right hand's doing? But still, I'm more and more aware nowadays of the geopolitical issues, and that's just something that's I can't even comprehend all that.
And the basketball court, I always say I'm a crafty veteran, but off the court, I just say I still haven't died for a reason. And a lot of that is, trying to really analyze things and understand, why things are the way they are, or what's actually happening versus what people are saying.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, not to get too political, but I always go back to politics being poly meaning many and ticks being blood-sucking creatures. And it's just one more front as business people that we have to deal with is all the stuff that goes into that. So,
well, that's not baiting or angering at all, since it applies to all parties.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Back on the tariffs, what would you say? For a business owner, just trying to understand, kind of how this impacts them and so forth. What are some of perhaps the unseen costs or things for organizations that aren't in manufacturing or exporting, importing kinds of things? How do you see that affecting others?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we look at, because there's a lot of ancillary companies that we deal with, whether it's marketing or transportation or just the boxes that our product comes in, that all these things, because of tariffs, you've got to look at all this stuff. And I've got to go, I've been working with a box company for several years, but I'm out looking for less expensive boxes right now. So you've got relationships you've had with companies for a long time that they may not be able to reduce their prices, and so now you're having to create new relationships and new things. And there's just a lot of disruption with that. We've had one freight forwarder we've used for several years, and now we're using 6 different freight forwarders to get the best pricing. And it's creating disruption throughout. So I manage the accounting, finance teams, and logistics. And so it's creating disruption for all of them on a regular basis, because we're having to change processes. We're having to be aware of, more moving pieces. So both internally and externally, it's creating new dynamics. That I was talking to a friend today, and he said, you think you build your business to a place where eventually it can just kind of coast along. But he said, it's always something new. And that's just it. This kind of speeds up that process of a lot of things new that are disruptive to just your day-to-day business efforts.
Yeah. And I think that's some really great insight. I hear you talking about the margin pressures or the challenges of a per unit kind of thing in manufacturing. In other industries or manufacturing, it could be other things. It could be, obviously, cost is a top factor there, but it could be client satisfaction or the client experience or operational capabilities or other kinds of things that small organizations or organizations that aren't necessarily manufacturing that they could do to make themselves as competitive or still a good choice for whoever their third parties are, who their vendors are, whoever they're working with. I think sometimes we, like you say, we fall into the role of, hey, I've been doing it this way for a few years, so this is good enough. But I think the challenge here is we need to take a step back and start thinking that we need to, every 2 to 3 years, we need to be an almost different organization because if we're not getting better, then we're getting worse relative to our competitors.
Yeah. And then one of the other things, being the coach person, I'm always thinking about, our people and people in other companies too. I mean, I'm aware of 2 other footwear companies that worked on a different model than us. They were high volume, low margin, and the tariffs have already put them out of business because they couldn't bring the product in and sell it for the price they were. So now you've got people that have lost jobs, but even people in our company have questioned, what impact is this going to have on me and on my job? And so you're having to educate people on a lot more things to make them comfortable and, and keep them somewhat sane, in their job. But a lot of other companies that aren't going to be able to tolerate the pressure of the tariffs like we are, they may not have that same level of comfort. So not only just price and processes, but your people and how it impacts them on a day-to-day basis.
Well, since we started on kind of a little bit of your coaching experience and stuff, let's tap into that a little bit. So, when you're coaching, executives, entrepreneurs, what's that most common blind spot that you're trying to help them uncover?
It's really most of the time it comes down to confidence being short-circuited by some prior experience, trauma, belief. And so, and let me talk a little bit about what coaching is and what coaching isn't, just to make it clear. So,
good.
Coaching isn't consulting. It's not me saying, this is the way I think you should do it. It's not mentoring. It's not saying this is the way I did it and this is the path that you can follow. And it's not therapy. I'm not going back and fixing things from your past, although we're probably going to talk about things from your past that may be affecting what's keeping you from going forward. Coaching's all, and I talk about this with my wife a lot because she is a therapist. What she does is deal with people's past. I'm trying to help them with their future. And so I'm trying to dig in and help these people find what is that thing that's slowing me down? How do I help them unlock doors to work through that? And then how do I help them set themselves up for success? And when it comes down to it, between Jeff Jones and Steve Meek, who's the professional, who's the expert on Steve Meek's?
I just finished a book around that topic. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I know you're not old, but I'm old, so I can't remember things. But a lot of it talked about how at certain times that we can be the actual limit on our own success, that it's almost like we're afraid of success, or we hold ourselves back because we think we haven't earned it or deserve it or other kinds of things. And I can see where there'd be a great need for what you do in helping, especially executives. Sometimes business owners, it's lonely at the top. Maybe you choose not to do a lot with people inside your company socially because you're afraid of the possible implications of that. Perhaps you're the only one in your role, and nobody else understands the stress and things that you're going through. Sometimes it's family or personal related, but I think every business owner has special challenges and special things that nobody else knows about, and having a coach or a peer group or something else where you can, unwrap those things can be very therapeutic.
It's everybody. One of my clients was a rodeo cowboy. And it was, just what's holding him back. And it's similar stuff. I mean, we all fight a lot of the same battles, but, there's this stigma or mentality that I can't go talk to anybody about this because they'll see me differently, or that, they won't think of me as highly, or whatever it is. And I found that to be pretty untrue for the most part. I'm a big believer in authenticity and vulnerability at this point in my life. And, and if there's things about me they don't want to deal with, that's okay. I'm good with that. But I have found that my ability to be open, whether it's with a therapist or a coach or whatever it is, to deal with whatever limiting belief I'm putting on myself, it becomes a game changer.
I think, especially being a coach of any sort, I think your authenticity carries a lot of weight, and it's something about you being authentic allows the person you're helping be authentic about themselves as well.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Now, do you have like a I'm a basketball guy. Do you have like a go-to move when you're trying to help them get out of the way of their own growth?
I don't, because everybody's different. And so, you can't give your point guard the same move you're going to give your center, right? It's everybody's different. And so it's, the key is just being able to really listen to what they're saying and hearing what they're not saying. And it's, I remember I worked with one executive from Hewlett Packard, and it happened in so many of our conversations. And it was just so funny the way he always said it, but he would say things and I'd finally ask him a question and he'll just go, he'd stop for me and he goes, "I'll be damned." And, it's like, it was him saying it, but he had never listened to himself and what he was saying. And I just kind of asked it in a different way, and it opened the door. But, everybody's got a different thing. And so yeah, there's not, I kind of start every session. There's kind of little 5 questions I go through at the beginning of every session with everybody, whether it's my first time or 12th time to meet with you. But then after that, it's just working with you, listening to you, and figuring out how what I have can help you unlock those doors.
Yeah, that external eye carries a lot of value. Sometimes I used to make the example that if I come into my office, I get used to the way things are from coming in here every day. And if somebody else walks into my office and goes, "Hey, what's that book?" or "What's that thing over there?" or "Why is the window open?" You just get so used to seeing things every day and falling into the routine of things that, having that external eye goes a long way, and, giving you a different point of view, or seeing things or scrutinizing in a way that perhaps you've forgotten how to because of how, the brain and its cognitive capabilities, it kind of starts to hide details from us to keep us focused on things that we think we want to focus on.
Exactly. And hide things that we think we want hidden. And so, so it's, life's interesting. It's
Any good books that you want to recommend or throw out there, or websites that we can put in the show notes that people would appreciate, or along those lines?
2 books that I've everywhere I've been, I've done different versions of this. Here at Twisted X, I call it Book Club. And 2 books written by the same organization, which is the Arbinger Institute, Arbinger.
Okay.
But one of them's The Outward Mindset. The other one is Leadership and Self-Deception, which also deals with mindset. My people have loved those books because it's contrasting an outward mindset and inward mindset, where an inward mindset's, as it sounds, very me focused, my needs, my wants, everything's about me. Whereas an outward mindset is about us, and, how do we all work better together, and how do I hear you better, and how do I communicate with you better, and how do I collaborate with you better, and how do I do conflict with you better? And I guess I recommend those just because my team has absolutely loved them. Mm-hmm. And I had an employee come to me yesterday and goes, "Hey, I got to tell you how I've used the outward mindset with a family issue." And so yeah, those are 2 of my favorites. One that I've always recommended forever is a book called The Servant I believe it's by Michael Hunter, just about leadership. And those are probably the 3 I recommend the most.
I've been a big fan of Patrick Lencioni stuff as an executive. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and I think the motive. I think the motive is a good one for owners. Just trying to figure out what, as an executive, and where you should be investing your time, what things you're working on. There's one about being a good employee and other kinds of things. It's a small books, but I've really gotten a lot, and we've touched on the some of the Lencioni books over the years in our internal lunch and learns and manager meetings
Yep.
and stuff. And
Yeah.
they've been good advice for us at times.
Yeah, a great group of books. And then I've kind of gotten into reading about Stoicism lately, and the Stoics. And there's a email I get every day called the Daily Stoic, and I've really enjoyed that because we were talking earlier about turning 60, and it's just really made me think about what's the legacy I want to create for my kids and for my grandkids, and maybe even people that work with me. What do I want to leave behind? And it's all about mindset. And my mother growing up used to tell me all the time, your attitude's your altitude. And I was just like, and doggone if she wasn't right. It's our mindset can unleash us to do incredible things. But so many of us, we either grow up in backgrounds where, it's like, well, we don't want to, we want to be humble and we want to,
right.
And so we do all these things where we kind of think small to our detriment. I mean, obviously you don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to run over people, but if we could ever learn to unleash the power of our minds, there's no telling what we could accomplish. So, a lot of the things that I'm interested in right now deal with mindset and how to have a mindset that allows me to be the human I want to be.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot around that as well. I guess our tracks are paralleling here. I don't know how that happened, since we're different kinds of crazy. But I found that books kind of help reshape some of the. Don't get me wrong. There's the small town sayings that I had that I hated at the time, but now I can't stop repeating myself. But there's also the ones that I do felt held me back or made me think a certain way. And as I read other things, it gives me that contrasting point of view. And I think Mark Twain was saying that. I remember him saying something like, "Travel changes your view of the world." And I think reading books gives me an opportunity to travel the mental side, the cognitive side of the world, and it gives me an opportunity to think outside myself and get a different points of view at times.
Yeah, I was talking with Prasad, our CEO, last week, and he's older than me, 15 years older than me, and he was talking about. He said, I thought at this point I knew everything about footwear, and now I'm having to learn all these things. And I said, yeah, we're too old to be learning new stuff, aren't we? And, we just laugh because we're both believers in constant learning. And so, but, we're learning more right now than we're the drinking water from the fire hose method today. But yeah, I mean, I think that's important both for, personal growth, but even for emotional and physical health. I think
absolutely
keeps us younger. So,
young at heart, the body parts are still really old.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a better engine, but the chassis still has lots of dents and Bondo on it.
That's the truth. So I just traded in my truck, and my other one is 10 years old, and I'm like, wow, I'm just amazed how much better this truck drives than that one did. And, my wife stated the obvious. Well, it's a lot newer, and well, there you go.
It's always nice when things reveal themselves.
Yes.
Well, Jeff, we've been a little bit all around the board today. I don't know what happened, but time flew by, and we're kind of coming to the end here. But from our original conversation, kind of getting started around tariffs, you told me all the things you told me to tell me what. What do you want to be the one takeaway that people get from our discussion today?
I think it's a little bit of what we were talking about just a minute ago, but everything changes. And so it's just imperative that we never get so set in our ways that we can't adjust and adapt and learn and be able to do things new in better ways all the time. And, the pandemic brought that lesson to our door. The tariffs have brought that lesson to our door. We were it's been interesting to see how much better we responded to this because of the pandemic.
Sure.
Because there were things we learned out of that just made this easier to deal with. And so, I think whatever it is, whether it's in business or life, things always change. I mentioned to you a minute ago, my mom passed away recently. She was still living in the house that we moved into in 1971. The one constant in my life for the last 50 something years has been that house.
Mm-hmm.
And, now that's even changing. And so but change, I used to be afraid of change. And several years ago, I really dealt with some stuff and had to learn to embrace change. And our mindset will determine how we deal with the things that life throws at us. And we get to choose. So I think that's what the tariffs have taught us as much as anything is we get to choose how we react to all this. And we're not victims of it. We have an opportunity. We get to be opportunists.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always two sides to the coin, and either one could be correct. But there's organizations dealing with the tariffs that could be doing like you guys and looking for change things up, look at other areas, find ways to maybe expand, change, grab market share, do other things while other people are acting. There could be organizations out there that are taking the expense control to the next level. Maybe instead of just trimming the fat, they're cutting into muscle to lower costs and do other things. So, you can go whichever way you want, and both are equally possibly successful methods. Yep. But it all depends on your particular belief system and what you can do and your team and all of those kinds of things to figure out which one's right for you.
Bingo.
Now, as far as the big point today, are there other prescriptions, other little things, nuggets that you want people to take away from our discussion today that, they can take and hopefully be helpful with them?
Yeah. One of the things, again, this is a little bit of getting older, but I'm also, I work with a lot of younger people. And one of my big quotes that I always give them is, don't get so caught up in chasing tomorrow that you miss today. And that just comes from some personal experience. I used to be so focused and still am, I'm working on it, but so focused on climbing the ladder or, getting ahead that I missed just the moment, the present. And that was the one thing, if I could redo some things, I think that might be the only thing I would redo is just to try to be more present in the moment. So
that makes sense. I like it. As we wrap up, let's say someone wanted to reach out and get a hold of some more of the Jeff wisdom. How can people reach you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the Jeff Jones with the cowboy hat on. There may be another one, but not that I'm aware of. So you can get me there, or you can email me, Jeff at mentalmo, so mental, mental, mo, coach.com.
Okay. We'll make sure and add that to the show notes as well. As for myself, you can always reach me by email, the doctor at fulcrumgroup.net with both of those words spelled out completely. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Steve Meek, CISSP is the suffix there. And that wraps up another episode of Talk to the Doc. Where we get together, sharpen our knives, and kind of figure out how to be better business owners, better leaders, and all of those kinds of things. So today, I think Jeff helped us understand, if you're a business owner or leader, secure your banking relationships, be ready for when the tariffs shake, kind of what's going on at the global scale, and making sure you've got basically a stable footing to survive through some cost cutting and savings wherever you can find those opportunities. So at this point, we're ready to move on. So don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment, give us a 5-star review. It really helps the show reach more listeners like you. So, and you can also leave a comment or suggestion. That's right. I take feedback. I'm a good person. So until next time, I'm your host, Steve, the Dr. Meek. All right. Hey, thanks so much for bearing with me and getting through it today, and apologize for that. But I think we baked some good cookies anyways.
That's right. And when you want to come up to North Texas Smoke, holler at me.
All right. I will. Sounds great. Thanks so much, Jeff. Take care. Bye.